So then the thing with grace is that grace doesn't change the situation, but I think it just, when grace is present, then it starts to become lighter. That's what the presence of grace does. So it doesn't change any of the difficulty. It's still difficult, but it can be lighter.
Hello, friend. Welcome. I'm your host, Carlene Cadet Francois from Florida Assisted Living Consulting. We help busy professionals convert buildings into thriving, licensed assisted living facilities and group homes throughout the state of Florida. Our tagline is get licensed on very first inspection, and it's true. We are also the host of the Assisted Living Caregivers Conference, the annual conference for Florida senior care entrepreneurs. Happens once per year. Click the link in the description where you can learn more information about it. We are planning a 2 days conference for 2026, and we've already been selling the tickets. Click the link to learn more. We are also community organizers inside of the Thriving Circle community. We go live monthly to help you, to educate you. And so you can come meet me live and bring me whatever challenges that you may be facing through your caregiving journey. And then I give you actionable steps, resources to keep you unstuck. Today, I am here with an amazing guest. When I tell you last time we spoke, we were on the phone for like an hour and neither one of us noticed that. The conversation flows so beautifully. So I just got to let you in. Valencie Exceus, so you can call her V. She is Dr. Exceus, by the way. I noticed that you didn't put that there. I want to give you the proper credit. Dr. V is a licensed acupuncturist, a holistic healing practitioner, serving South Florida since 2006. With over 19 years of clinical experience, Dr. V blends culture, spirituality, and medicine to help people heal from chronic pain, anxiety, depression, and trauma. She is known for creating safe spaces through embodied meditation and healing circles, helping individuals connect with themselves in their communities. Dr. V, oh my God, it's just like, I just got to go on your website and book my appointment. You are singing my love language right here. Could you please introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you?
Thank you so much, Carlene. And I purposefully did not put the title doctor at the beginning because it's a role and I have many other roles. And I feel like these things can sometimes create vertical barriers when we need to connect. And for me, what's important is connection and being able to vertically connect with everyone. So my name is Valencie and I go by V. It means life. And it's a reminder that inside of me is the very essence of life itself. It's inside of all of us. It's in the plants. We're all interconnected. So I feel like just V is my title in and of itself. And so I am a licensed acupuncturist. I also consider myself a patient, my number one patient. And I also believe in having a team of healthcare providers whenever we need to stay healthy or if we're addressing a health condition. So I believe in that team approach. I'm also a caregiver. Both of my parents have dementia. And so I care a lot about caregivers, caring for caregivers and making sure that we take care of ourselves in the process.
I absolutely love how humble you are. Like, you are like one of those people that I could tell you are an overachiever, from the moment I met you. And I think it's the one thing that, amongst other things that we have in common, because I myself, if I find that my titles or that my achievement will put a wall between me and the person that I'm interacting with, I will leave all of that to the side. And I've have had good people in my community that will say, like I did for you just now, oh no, you're Dr. V, ma'am. Right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes people who don't know us, they don't know the accomplishments, they don't know the things, how hard we've worked and how focused we are in serving them. I think it's also helpful for them to know also that there are credentials behind all of these achievements. And although you yourself won't focus on that, I think it's also fair to bring that up, so people can know, okay, there are credentials behind this person.
Mhm.
I absolutely love the way that you serve, the way that you care for people, and how in tuned you are with the universe and the world, and that we are all alive. How did you become this person who is so in tune, living the highest and best life that you can live?
Oh, what a great question. I feel like I was born like that, and there were a lot of things that kept me with my essence. So we all have original essence. So when we are born, we are each unique individuals. We have the essence of our parents and each of their lineages coming together to create this individual. And there will be no one like us. Even if we are twins, each person is an individual. And we have our soul, which is unique. And I feel like we are born as perfect vessels, at least our
Mhm.
souls. We can also have, some physical weaknesses, some certain conditions are inherited. However, we also inherit trauma. We also start having limitations when we start to individuate as toddlers. When toddlers start to say no, we don't typically, as a society, as family, we don't typically like that. So the
Mhm.
parents usually don't like that. What do you mean no? But that stage of no is when the child becomes an individual. And so early on, we go from being limitless beings. If you've ever met toddlers, and I think we all have, they have no sense of limitation. And then as we continue to grow, society starts putting these limitations on us. You cannot do this, you can do this. So some of my, or a good chunk of my essence got preserved, I think, because of my parents and grandparents and how I was raised. So I credit them for that, even though, like every other human being, I've had individual, ancestral, and collective trauma.
I mean, you said so much here. Like,
Mm.
listen, and you're Dr. V, okay? You said so much here. I have had the opportunity to work on myself and in myself. And
Mm.
so when you mention, for example, the way that society conditions us, that we were born without a limit, and surely we become limited. And oftentimes the family we're born with, they're really good with putting that perimeter on us. And when it comes to collective trauma, even for me, I've read so many different books. There was a book that I read, It Didn't Start With You. It was a book that was talking about how and it was the first time I had actually ever heard about that term, that you can inherit trauma from your bloodline. I was just like, what? What do you mean by that? Because my biggest focus was to work in myself and on myself so I don't traumatize the next generation with my own personal traumas and things that I went through. And so when you talked about that phase of no's and conditioning, for parents who don't work on themselves and probably don't even notice the things that they do, they can really traumatize the next generation. And if, I mean, there's so much we're going to go into, but if
Mhm.
someone is listening to this and they're like, I think I have some things to work on, but I am not sure where to begin, what advice would you give to those caregivers?
So I would say to always begin with compassion, self compassion, and compassion for others. if we can have compassion for ourselves, usually we can extend grace and compassion for others. When we don't have self-compassion, sometimes we're very punitive with others. But if we can start to embrace different aspects of ourselves, we all have multiple aspects of ourselves because we are truly the results of the previous generations. And so we have inherited trauma. And I'll give you a very real example that happened last night. So
Mm.
I did my DNA test many years ago, and
Mm.
Ancestry.com always update the DNAs. So I'm 95% African and 5% European. So each time they did an update, my European ancestry would completely change. So over the
Wow.
years, I've been Russian, Italian, French, British, Irish, Scottish. And so I never took that 5% very seriously. I've never been very attached to it. Whenever I speak of ancestors, it has always been the African ancestors. And then over time, as I got deeper into trauma healing, then I realized, oh, in order for me to be whole, I need to embrace all of me, including the 5%.
Mhm.
But it was like this very vague, very broad 5%. Then in the latest DNA results, they updated it, and out of the 5%, 3% is French Canadian. So I live
Mm.
in a community where it's mostly maybe like 98, 99% French Canadian. And so sometimes I live in a condo. So in Florida, we have the term condo commandos. So when I saw the 3%, it's like, oh, like, like, oh, the condo commandos. And so then last night I went back and I opened the Ancestry app, and I was reading and I was like, what's that about? Like, how did I go from all these countries in Europe to now 3% Canadian? And then it mentions the Acadians. The Acadians were Canadians who got kicked out from Canada by the British and were sent to Haiti, to the northwest part of Haiti where I was from. So the northwest
Wow.
part of Haiti where I'm from has had almost every single major player in colonization. So Mont Saint
Mm.
Nicolas is where Christopher Columbus placed one of the crosses. So it's literally ground zero for what I call a cancer that's spread throughout the world, colonization,
Wow.
which is a major
Yes.
collective trauma. And so from there, so then we had the Tainos, then we had the Spanish, then we had the French. And then at some point in the Northwest, we had the British brought the Acadians. Well, they kicked them out. Then the Acadians came, and then the town where my dad is from, Bombado Police, had the Germans. And so
Mm.
it's so layered and so striated that when I was doing collective trauma healing, I connected to all the layers. And this is one of the few places in the Americas where the whites were treated as slaves. When they brought over the Acadians, they were deeply mistreated, and
Mm.
most of them ended up dying, and then they
Oh.
flee to Louisiana. And so when I read that, and then suddenly they became alive in me, and it's like, oh
Oh.
wow, even my 3% white ancestors experienced some level of slavery on that island.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, so now it's more real. So we have
Mm.
so many different aspects of ourselves, and we didn't just inherit trauma. We also inherited a lot of wisdom, a lot of inner resources. And so if we start connecting to the nuance of who we are, then we become curious. So when I meet you, I can get to know you as an individual. And when we're not curious, that's when we rely on stereotypes and prejudices. And it's a lack of curiosity, because instead of getting to know you, I think I know you. I think I know
Mhm.
you because you're a woman, or because you're a Black woman, or because you're a Hispanic man, because you're a white man. So we're not actually getting to know this individual in front of us.
This video is brought to you by the Florida Assisted Living and Caregivers Conference. It is an annual conference for all those who want to open an assisted living right here in Florida. We bring you all of the who's that will help you achieve your ALF. We have caregivers, we have people that already have their assisted living up and running, and they are here for resources. We have caregivers caring for mom and dad at home, but lack resources, so they show up for more resources. We have investors that are in the room looking for partnerships because they don't necessarily want to manage, but they are looking for someone to do the day-to-day while they can do the other investments. We also bring to you all of the sub-industries, those providers that help you get your ALF up and running, the providers that will come to your ALF to provide services to your seniors. We bring everyone in the room for the first time. This event normally sells out. Click the link in the description and I will see you in the room. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was so deep, confirming how there are so many layers to who we are. And one of the ways that even before I started working on myself, like I would have what people will call weird dreams. I would also have dreams that would come alive, and sometimes I couldn't differentiate whether it was a dream or it was a reality. Literally, I would have vivid dreams like that. And that's what led me to kind of like go deep. Like clearly there's different layers to this onion that we're peeling off. And if my leg can hurt, literally, my legs can hurt, and I can pray and go to sleep and ask God to give me a sign whether this is serious or not. And I would get that. And then I forget that my leg is hurting. There's got to be different layers to who we are. And it's amazing to see that you've not only done the work for yourself, but you've coupled it with history, and you've also coupled it with credentials. And I know that you are also a caregiver for your dad. We've had conversations about the unique ways that you've been able to approach what is going on as a caregivers. Can we talk a little about that?
Oh, yes. So I'm a sole caregiver for my mom. And then my dad also, both of my parents are 87 and they have dementia, and they have the same level and type of dementia, or it manifests very similarly. And my dad, I'm not his primary caretaker. And however, he's in a nursing home, so I see him often, and I go there a good 3-4 times a week. So witnessing both of my parents, I have a different perspective and a different take on dementia.
Wow, that is so amazing, because then you're caring for your mom as the only caregiver, and you're also overseeing your dad. Can you tell us a little bit about your background of how you've been able to not only discover your mom? I don't know if you can call dementia beautiful, but you've found beautiful ways of discovering both your parents. Can we have a conversation around how you've been able to not only serve them better, but also help your siblings to help them serve them better? Well, your dad, that is, because you're the only child for your mom.
Mhm. Yes. So it's interesting because my mom had dementia first. And when it first happened, I was so overwhelmed. I ended up burned out and took time off from work, actually closed my practice in order to become a caretaker and also to go deeper into trauma healing, because around the time that my mom got sick, I started noticing that the patients I was seeing for chronic health conditions had some type of trauma. Based on the conversations we were having, I wanted to understand trauma healing better. And so at first, I felt some level of frustration and resentment because I worked so hard. And at the time, so this was the time of the pandemic, and I just wanted it to, it's like, I just needed one more year or something. It's like, oh my
Mhm.
I was anticipating things getting worse. So it's like, oh, why here, why now? And I wish I had siblings. So that was my thing. It's like, I wish I had siblings. I wish I had someone that I could call to help me. So I was talking to a therapist, not my therapist, but she's a therapist. And
Mhm.
I was sharing some of what I was feeling. And she said, you might want to have grace so that you go through this with grace so that you don't have any regrets later.
Oh.
And at first I thought, like, why is she not validating my feelings and my frustration and resentment? And I'm glad she told me that, because one day, just one random day in the kitchen, the grace did come.
Oh.
And I was preparing food for my mom. My mom eats only fresh food. And so I've been, it's been a journey. So this is since 2020 of making a lot of bouillon. Bouillon is a Haitian soup, Caribbean soup with lots of roots, vegetables, and plantain and actual vegetables and meat. And so as I was preparing the bouillon, I just had this thought, and I've always had a really deep, beautiful connection with my grandmother, as
Oh.
probably many people have. And I just had this realization that, oh, I'm preparing my grandmother's little girl to reunite with her.
Oh.
All of a sudden, it wasn't just my mom. It was like, oh, this is my grandmother's baby girl.
Oh.
And that shifted everything.
Everything.
And it feels like speaking of ancestral healing, it feels like the love, the motherly love of my grandmother became alive in me. And I started caring for my mom, not just as a daughter, certainly as a daughter, but there was also something maternal. And over the years, as I've been caring for her, the little girl in her has come alive.
Oh.
It feels like with dementia, it's deleting what I call the malware. So a lot of the trauma, some of the things that were very painful for her, the separation with my dad, those were things that she was holding on to. Because the dementia deleted them, there's a lightness, there's a joy, there's a light in her eyes that I had not seen in years that's back.
Wow.
So she's so joyful that even though she has forgotten certain things, that for me, I see this as some type of a healing. So instead of seeing it as a tragic thing that, oh, my mom doesn't remember this, I see it as a preparation for the next leg of the journey, that wherever she's going next, that she's going without these trauma or malware. And then, yeah, so by the time I showed up for my dad, and he has a similar form of dementia, then I could see the beauty of it. And I realized that their essence is there, maybe more than ever. Who they are, the truth of who they are is more present. It's just that we, the caregivers, their children, their family members, if we don't understand what's happening, then we freak out, and then we don't connect with them. So what I recognize with both of my parents is that they don't have a sense of time, and they don't have a sense of space. So they may not know what day it is. They may not know exactly where they are, what town. Sometimes my dad thinks he's in Haiti, but who they are is there. And so they recognize me, they recognize their children in the case of my dad. So we can have a completely normal conversation. But if you're freaking out, if you're like, oh my God, my dad doesn't know what year it is, he doesn't know the day, my mom used to know what day, then you miss out on these beautiful conversations because they have retained their long-term memory. And so now I'm learning about their youth. We didn't know our parents when they were children, when they were
Wow.
young. So when they bring up those things, it's like, oh, tell me more about it. How was it? How was it when you were at school? How was it when you were a kid? So I feel like I'm getting to know this version of them by not
Yes.
freaking out about the things that they have forgotten. And so my siblings have thanked me for sharing that with them because they're able to connect. So that's what I've learned with them.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Thank
Oh
you.
my God. I never thought that there could be such positivity with dementia. All of it started with you being aware, right? Being aware that, first of all, I validate. I want to start with that.
Thank you.
I validate, especially being the only child. I have come in situations where the only child was making all the decisions, and the stress, you see it on the shoulders. So trust
And
me,
I
I
probably have
validate
it
with
now.
that. Yes, yes, you see it on their shoulders. They're carrying the burden of proof, the burden of everything. But for you to be so open enough to take a constructive criticism and open yourself up to it, to where it would actually implement itself in you, you would have to grow up to be able to do those kind of stuff. I don't know what would be the perfect word, but you would have to be so self-aware, so selfless, to even open yourself to it and to allow that to actually do something to you. And I love that you are discovering your parents and you are seeing a different side of them. And to think that dementia could delete trauma, when you said that to me, I was blown away, because I don't think anyone, at least I have never thought about that. To think that now this individual have a different perspective, and if we, the people who are dealing with their symptoms, can educate ourselves and know how to deal with them where they are, in that it could be a very pleasant experience. Now, some people are like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
Can we elaborate a bit more and give some examples?
Oh, yes. So first I will say all the difficulties are still there. I'm not saying that this is light and airy and fluffy. So like the first day my dad went into the nursing home, I was the one who was there signing the paperwork. So when I left, when I got in the car, I had to have a caregiver prayer with God. I have some really funny caregiver prayers. One of my favorite caregiver prayer is, "Oh, come on, God!" Like
That's funny.
because my mom sometimes will go on a loop, and so she might start looping about something. Like sometimes she may think like her mom just passed or her dad just passed, and I'm like, "Oh, come on, God!" And then I don't get
That's
that
funny.
prayer. I call it the caregiver prayer. And then after a few days or a day or two, she'll get back to normal. And so,
Oh.
so then I had one of my caregiver prayers where, so now I'm driving. So my dad is in West Palm. So I'm driving from West Palm to Broward. And I realized now it's not just one, it's two parents with Alzheimer's. And I'm like,
Wow.
what is, so this is me talking to God, my parents, to everybody, to all concerned parties. And I'm like, what is going
And
on?
you
What is
said it,
going on?
all concerned
Yes.
parties.
And so this is me to my parents. I'm like, what are y'all up to? Why are you choosing the slow scenic route? And so this is me to God. I say, I'm gonna need a council meeting of all concerned parties. I need to know, like, I like to be in on this. And it's just like, how am I supposed to do this? And so the next day, it was met like this is me being funny with God. The next day, I went to see my dad, and I heard, so two CNAs went to change him, and they asked me to step out. And speaking of humility, for healthcare professionals, I know sometimes healthcare providers go into hospital settings and nursing homes and then they give people a hard time. Like, I'm a nurse, I'm a
Which
this.
I don't understand why.
What are you doing? It's like, it doesn't make the people help more. And so once they said to step out, I was like, okay, I humbly step out, but I'm listening behind the door. Then I heard laughter. And then they opened the door, they were laughing. This nurse was passing by, and then she came in. They were all already my dad's friends. And he
Oh,
loves
so
to, yeah,
amazing.
he loves to sing. So he will sing and dance. And so he
Wow.
already knew his songs. One of them was singing with him. And I was like, you guys know his song? They're like, yeah, we love him. And so, and I said, oh my God, I was so
You guys
worried.
know that song?
Yes. And so then, and I said, I was so worried. They're like, oh, we got him. And so then I'm like, my mom has dementia. She's a Broward. And then I have to drive to Palm Beach. They're like, oh, don't worry. We got him. And so I left that day feeling so light. I got in the car. I was like, oh, you did hear me, God. Like, thank you.
Oh.
And so then the thing with grace is that grace doesn't change the situation, but I think it just, when grace is present, then it starts to become lighter. So he still has
Yes.
dementia. He's still in a nursing home, but he's so happy. The people love him. They had to move him to another unit. I was there at 1 p.m. I came back at 7 p.m. And both the nurse and the CNA, they're already like, we love your dad. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on?
Oh.
That's what the presence of grace does. So it doesn't change any of the difficulty. It's still difficult, but it can be lighter.
I love that story. I absolutely love it. Say, oh, you know that song?
Yeah. They love him there, and I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, that is so amazing. And you know what? I want to say 98% of people who do this type of work, caregivers, absolutely love it because they love it. Of course, like everything else, there's that 2% that, that weed that grows in your garden, right? You just got to pluck
Mm-hmm.
them out. And I'm glad to see how God answered your prayer. And you're outside and you're listening in and you hear laughter and you know that song. I absolutely love that. And it shows how we can have the worst type of perspectives. Like you hear nursing home, and for me, like oftentimes I catch myself say, oh, I'm sorry. But then for your dad in the life that he's living now, nursing home is like a party to him. All these
Yeah.
ladies loving him, helping make life easier for him. And he's having a good time. For people listening to this, and I know with grace, the issues don't go away. You just have peace beyond understanding, right? Like the Bible talk about
Yeah.
peace beyond understanding. They're in a situations where they are just struggling. They made this promise to mom and dad that they would never look into an assisted living or even a nursing home. What advice would you say to them?
If you had asked me that prior to my dad being in the nursing home, I I would not have been able to give anyone that advice, because I made that promise that I wouldn't put my mom in a nursing home, because I always thought it was like a depressing place. And even the first day I went there with my dad, I was like, oh my God, this is so depressing. So I didn't realize it could be a place of joy, of grace, of light. So much has shifted since he's been there, that now I would be okay if I needed to do that for my mom. Whereas before, that was like an absolutely no. So I would say you probably could give better advice than me because you're in that field. I just have the one experience, but I would say to be open to possibilities and not close doors that haven't even been open. Someone gave me that advice once and it helped me. It says, do not close doors that haven't even been open yet.
That's deep. That
Mm-hmm.
is so deep. Talking
Yeah.
about peeling off the onions, that's deep. I think you gave good advice because oftentimes we can think of even the worst type of business, if you have good people in it, become a great business. I think it's people that drives any type of industry or business. And when you have heart-centered people who are serving from the right place, even the worst situation is suddenly, I mean, it still is the worst situation, but the approach to it, how you feel having the conversation about it is different when you're talking to someone who is properly heart-centered. So I would say, of course, family members will have to do their homework, but I feel like our spiritual senses also let us know. Like if you're walking and you're like, you just don't feel right. And it's not
Hmm.
just you being biased because you made promises and you're just like eerie, right? Pay attention to those. And if you did your due diligence, you would know whether or not this is a great place. Of course, there are great facilities and communities. Also, there are that 1% out there that is just not the right fit, and you will see it when you walk in. I love though how if we can be open, because I've always been an open book. I tell my husband, when's the last time I told you a lie? You say that's because I don't do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't have to keep track because I've always
Yeah.
been an open book. I mean, everybody know my phone password. Like it's like, I can't hide anything. But you open yourself enough. When you're open yourself enough, you won't have to put a wall up, and then you're more open to perspective, and people can actually give you constructive criticism without feeling like you're going to come out punching, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes we need that. So I love that about you, and I know that beyond caring for your mom, caring for your dad, you've done some work in the community. You're working on some things. Can we talk about that?
Oh, yes. Before we do that, if I could quickly share something about the heart.
Yes, please
Um,
do.
and I also want to be transparent that part of the reason that I understand and can connect deeply with my parents is because I had an experience where I had a urinary tract infection that went up to my brain and it caused delirium. And so
Um,
I was misdiagnosed and giving the wrong medication. So I have a lived understanding of what happens when the brain is injured and that we are not the brain. The brain is like a computer, but that's not who we are. The fullness of who we are is more than the brain. And the mind doesn't live just in the brain. So I got to experience the effect of the brain being injured. Yet there was this whole other part of me, this inner witness that was still me observing everything with all of my knowledge and aware
wow.
that something is wrong and unable to communicate it. So the outside appearance appeared confusing, but the
Mhm.
true me was there and self-aware. And then I realized and got to experience that the heart is its own processing center. The heart has neurons. So my heart was not injured. So I got to experience the memories of the heart, how it can
Mm.
process and feel. Then I could feel my soul. So there was this other presence, this part of me. So I feel like when the brain is injured, the soul is even more present, and the soul is the part of us that's
Wow.
timeless. And so that's how I know I can communicate with my parents. It's like, oh, that's just maybe one hemisphere of the brain. Most likely it's the left hemisphere that's injured. The right hemisphere of the brain is vastly or is connected to vast intelligence. I mean, the right hemisphere is connected to vast intelligence. The left hemisphere is responsible for
Right.
categorizing it. And so I got to experience all of our different all those different parts of us, including the primal animalistic instinct that can keep us alive even if the brain is down. And so that's where a lot of that came from as well, having had the lived experience. And having been a patient, I got to experience the worst of healthcare and the best of healthcare. I got to sense and experience practitioners who were armored and cold, harmful. I got harmed with the wrong medication and I got mistreatments. Then I got to experience practitioners who were kind and loving, and it almost feels like, I think psychiatry, because this was brain related, the way I would describe it, it feels like within medicine is the realm of angels and demons. Some of the people
It's true.
have their own mental illness and can be, just cruel. And then you have people that are just pure angels that are there taking care of people. So I'm aware of how good things could get in healthcare, what's possible, and how bad things could get. So I could feel, so I'm aware. So when I feel those people taking care of my dad, it's from a very realistic lens too, of like, I can sense that, I could feel that these are good people. And so part of my passion for healthcare is that we have within, a lot of people would say it's the system, but I say it was within the same system. I got to experience deeply compassionate people and people who were cold, maybe bordering psychopathy. So my vision for healthcare is that we have more of the people that are meant to do this job to do it. So the work that I am doing in the community, in my professional life, having a burnout recovery program for healthcare providers and caregivers, both people like me who are taking care of their parents or children, and caretakers that work in the healthcare system, because sometimes you do have really good, compassionate people who end up with compassion fatigue. So they started out with compassion, but they're burned out, and then they're just not able to connect with the patient the same way. So if I could contribute to helping people to recover from burnout so that they can take better care of their loved ones, better care of the patients in those facilities, then I would have felt that I'm living in my purpose. Because when I was in the hospital bed, I didn't know if I could work again. This is the brain. But the part of me that was still me, that was intact, I asked God, I said, I would love, but remember, I had closed my practice. I was studying trauma healing. And then I wanted to take a different direction. I wanted to write books and do seminars and facilitate. I didn't want to go back to one-on-one patient care. But I remember laying there in the hospital bed and thinking, even if I don't have the knowledge, I can hold space for people. I can be compassionate. That in and of itself is medicine, being able to connect with people at the human level. And so I asked God to put me back, and it's like, put me in, coach. And then I said, if I can go back to work, I would love to go back to work. And so I've been working, and my brain is fine. I've done all sorts of testing and cognitive testing, and I've tested above average for my age. So I'm doing well. And then my heart remained open from all of that.
I love that so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. It is true, because even when you tell me about the story, the way that your dad, his world, I feel like he is more tapped into his spiritual right side, right? Because like you saying how we're able to, we are called human. We are multi beings living in a body. And it's amazing to see how you've been able to train your siblings because of your experience. I believe everything happens for a reason. I'm pretty sure it was unfortunate what happened to you, and the experiences that you had, and the way that you were so aware, and now you're using that to change lives. And you started in your own family. It started with your mom, then your dad. And now, not only that, but you're also teaching your siblings how to interact with your dad. You're literally changing the generation and the perspective. And now it's like your siblings now that carry this knowledge, if this ever to happen again, now they know how to teach their children to deal with that. And just like that, you're changing your own bloodline. And
Mm.
it's like sometimes we don't realize that it all starts with that one weird individual in the family. I'm the weird one in the family, okay? If if every time I go to sleep, I wake up with an idea.
Yes.
And I am so proud to see how you're not just changing the world and the world around you and the people that interacts with you. You're changing your bloodline. You're educating, you're showing them different perspective. And I commend you for that. Because even going through what you went through, you could have turned around and said, and be Sister Grumpy, right? Oh, I'm a good person. This shouldn't have happened to me. Da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. But you're able to see the good in everything. And I think that's why God is using you. And I just want to say, I cannot wait to read that book
Oh,
because I am one of those people that have my own, not personal, but personal. Because when I managed an ALF, I had a couple and both of them had dementia. They're only one child, only a son. And when I tell you, they become your own family, and people say, well, they weren't your family. No, you don't understand. They
mhm.
become your family. You love up on them, they love up on you. When they're sick, you just know, you just can feel things aren't right. You cry when they're not feeling good. It's just like, and when they die, listen,
Mm.
everybody grieved. I was grieving, my staff was grieving, the family was grieving. It's just like they become family. And that was my personal experience with dementia. And
Mhm.
you see that this was not a family by blood. This was a person that I had become a family with through my business. And this is the type of heart that is behind caregiving business.
Mhm.
And when I experienced that, I put up this wall that dementia is the worst thing under the sun. So when I heard you bringing out those different perspectives of dementia, it captivated me
Mm.
to be completely transparent, because now I want to see a lighter perspective of what I feel, what I experience. And of course, I wasn't the son. I can only imagine how he feels on a daily basis when he walks in and mom and dad or both don't remember him that day, right? So it's like, I want to be educated about that part that you're talking about. How to have those conversations. And of course, there are trainings and different things like that that we go through, but even deeper than that is to be able to separate the two. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, yes. And thank you for sharing that. Because then I also get to share the difficulties that I mentioned. So there's a lot of grief, and you get to grieve different version of your parents. So they call it a long goodbye. And you also get to meet new versions of them. So there are a couple of things that helped me along the journey. One of them is a patient of mine. She's been my patient for such a long time, and she feels like family as well. When this happened, she told me at the beginning, you're going to meet their dark side, their darker aspects.
Mhm.
And then at the end, you're going to see at some point their lighter aspects would show up. So I did have that experience with my mom. It looks like my sister experienced my dad's darker aspect. So there is that
Mm.
difficulty too, because he lived with my sister and her mom. So then the rest of us, like, we're now enjoying his lighter aspect. and she's recovering from the darker aspect. So in the case of my mom, it was at the beginning, and I didn't understand what was happening at first, that she suddenly didn't trust me, or she would ask me to take money for her at the bank, and then she forgot. Then she asked me again, and then I forgot. And so a cute thing is that at the beginning, my memory was as bad as my mom's. She's always had a better memory than me. So if she said I didn't give it to her, then I trusted her. Then it's when she asked me a third time, and I said, "Oh, I gave it to you." And it was easier for her to think I was lying or stealing from her. And we never had that relationship. And so then I cried so much because I realized, oh, my mom doesn't trust me, or she's developing dementia. And neither one of those was a good option. And so there were a lot of tears. And so I grieved a lot, and I was learning to feel. So part of my own trauma healing was to release the stored emotions. So I remember one day my mom came into my room and she found me crying, and then she said, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm just stressed." And she's like, "Do you have an actual problem?" And I was like, "Nothing's wrong, nothing specific."
It's funny, she wouldn't know, right?
Yeah. And then she looked at me like, "Oh, like you're weird or you're crazy, you know." And then I'm like, she doesn't think like this is stressful. And so then I did get to go through that journey of being with her shadow self. We all have shadows. And my mom was very active at church. So the world knows her light side. It's like, "Oh my God, you're so-and-so's daughter." And, she teaches catechism. She's the president of this group and that group. So then in being with her own shadow, then I get to learn the shadows of my lineage and to be with my own shadow and then the light. So there's that aspect. One other thing that helped me at the beginning, I made a difficult decision. And it was, I told myself, I can either be my mom's doctor or I can be her daughter. I can't be both. And so I felt that she needed a daughter more, and that she only has one daughter. So this is our soul contract. And she can have other doctors, but I need to be her daughter. And so with that, there could be guilt. Why am I not researching how to cure this? Of course, I give her things. She's been very stable since 2020. So part of my background has helped her. But sometimes if you are in a position where you can look for a cure, look for the best, you could be so caught up on that you miss the beautiful connection. And so one of the things that helped me was reading an article by a medical doctor who said he wished he was a son instead of a doctor for his dad, because he was so caught up with patient care and looking for a cure and all these things that he missed those last few years with his dad. And so I promised myself not to do that. And even after this, I don't think it would be good for me to dedicate my career to finding a cure or to the treatment of dementia. What I focus on is trauma healing, nervous system regulation, and also grief processing, because there's a lot of grief. And even as we speak, I'm in the middle of a mourning season because my best friend's mom passed away last week. Thank you. And so she called me. I was the person she called to meet. So it was sudden to meet with her dad in the ER. And so when I went, and we were the last two to see the body, and this is the second time I've had this experience of, I would say I have 4 best friends, people that I consider sisters. My other friend back in 17, when her mom passed away, I had just arrived to the house. So it was a similar scene. It was the body of the mom and then the dad there. And then my friend
Wow.
was on the way. Then my other friend this week was on her way from California to come here. So what's different in terms of grief processing is that back in 2017, I didn't know how to be with the emotions to actually feel things right away. And
Mm-hmm.
I stored so many things. I had a lot of unprocessed emotion back then. So
Mm-hmm.
this time when it happened, I allow myself to feel the emotions. And then it was a few days before my birthday. So I had friends who had plans for my birthday celebration. So I told myself, I'm going to be with both, be with the grief
Wow.
and not cancel those plans. The old me would have canceled everything and not
Wow.
process and go into full, like, how can I help mode. And I still was able to be there for them every day while being present for my other loved ones for my birthday. So grief processing is very important work for me. Is how can we process and integrate and continue living.
Oh my God. I am one of those people, and I'm sorry about the loss. I'm one of those people that I think it was the way that I was conditioned that I just kind of like buried everything. Like everything gets buried. And so part of the work that I had to do was working in me was allowing things to come up and deal with them accordingly, right? And
Mhm.
then I think part of my conditioning also led me to different decisions. For example, my line of work, like my nervous system was already all messed up because of my conditioning. And I went in a line of work that didn't help. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
now there's more stuff to bury, right? But you don't realize that trauma causes you to make certain decisions that are not necessarily bad, and sometimes they are bad. Knowing and catching yourself. And that was one of the things I became an avid reader. Like I wanted to I wanted to be a parent very early on. I wanted to have it all. But I also knew I didn't want the next generation to experience some of the things that I experienced. So, and I knew the only way that I could change that is through education. And it's beautiful to see that how you bring a perspective of hope, right? Because then you're like, I can be someone who is learning, but then I don't become the doctor. I'm able to separate the two and to be the daughter. And it's that soul contract. I'm telling you, I haven't been in the situations where I'm taking care of my parents. And I'm letting you know, and I know you've been through that. It's easier said than done. So if someone is watching this and you're like, you're caring for mom and dad, you're juggling life, you're probably a sandwich child where you have small children, plus you're caring for mom and dad, and you're like, oh, it's easier said than done.
Mhm.
But I want you to open your mind up a little bit. Let your subconscious think about it. And what are some advice would you give to someone listening and they're like, there's no way I can do this. I am the only one. I have so much going on. I can't even slow down to think. What are two steps you would give them?
Okay, so I would say first, trauma by nature, it makes everything goes fast. So when the nervous system is dysregulated, we're in fight or flight, or if we're frozen, everything we need to move fast. It's like there's no time. When the nervous system switches back to the parasympathetic state, which is the natural, peaceful, regulated state, it feels slow. However, you can be as productive, if not more productive, in that state. And so it will feel unnatural at first if you stop, slow down, and start taking care of yourself. So a lot of what I'm sharing came from doing the work, actually getting the acupuncture, getting the massage, doing the trauma healing, doing the therapy. So the experience that I shared, having the UTI, being misdiagnosed, being given the wrong medication, that medication affected my nervous system, led to a PTSD diagnosis. So when I had to do the trauma healing for the PTSD, I was waking up shaking with nightmare. And I was working with multiple therapists for the trauma healing. At the time, I was like, I don't think I would tell people to do that, because I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? It was so hard. It was like breaking a bone that was not healed properly in order
Wow.
to properly set it. And so now I am seeing the results, and I'm like, oh, this is why we heal. So for example, doing the individual, ancestral, collective trauma healing work, now I get to witness my mom asking me, where are you going? And I say, I'm
Oh.
going to visit my dad in the nursing home. And she said, oh my God, what's wrong? Then I tell her, and then she said, tell him I'm praying for him. Tell him I would visit him if I wasn't sick. Make sure you bring him money. And I said, oh, he doesn't need money
Oh.
in the nursing home. And she said, make sure you bring him snacks. You bring him this. I never thought I would witness that level of healing, because part of my mom's trauma was the deep resentment she felt from their separation. And she didn't want him to have anything to do with us, not just with her, with us. And so the separation had an impact on me. And so just 2 days ago, on Monday, I had my birthday. I got to dance with my mom in the kitchen.
Oh, so
I got
amazing.
to
Happy
see my
birthday, by
dad. I
the
got to
way.
dance with my dad. I never thought I could have
Oh.
any of this. I wouldn't even dream it. I wouldn't even put it in my journal. If they say, what would you, last year on my birthday, if I had to wish for something this year, I couldn't even dream that level of healing. So it's
Wow.
worth doing the healing work, because you don't know what's possible. So that's the first advice. The second advice, ending it with how we started. You mentioned the word humility. And so a friend of mine who's a mental health therapist gave me a beautiful definition of humility. So he said, oftentimes when we think of humility, we think of it as an abasing, making yourself less and shrinking. However, humility is about truth. It's knowing that we all have strengths and weaknesses. There are things that I am great at and someone else is not, and vice versa. So when we have humility, we can take a true assessment of ourselves, of our lives, and we can ask for help in the areas that we're struggling with, understanding that if I'm struggling in this area, there are people who are not struggling in that area and they can help me. So a lot of time we don't seek help because we're not humble. If we're humble, we can ask for help. So if you are a caretaker, there could be many things that's causing you to keep going and going and doing so much without pausing and taking care of yourself. But if you give yourself an hour a week for therapy, an hour a week for acupuncture, going for a walk, or whatever it is that you need, it makes everything else so much easier. So I would say to be humble, which is to be truthful and to allow some help to enter your life.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And even the way that we met, I think it was divine. I was just like in a phase of networking. I'm just like, and I have this friend who is a networking queen, and I say, "Can you just tell me where I need to go?" I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I needed to go. And me and you met, it was divine. I'm just like, wow,
Yes.
that is so amazing. And the way that we met, how we followed up, and I just can't get enough of you. And I was just like, this is so amazing. I want to say thank you for being here. Of course, you're going to be at the conference. I want to talk about so much more, like grief. I'm looking at my little note that I put next to as you're talking. Grief, self-care. People talk about us being selfish, but I'm just like, how am I selfish when I'm taking care of myself? Because if I can't take care of myself, then I can't help you. It's so much for us to go into. Where can people find you? What are some of the programs that you offer? How can they book an appointment? Because clearly they will have to reach out to you. Yes, they'll see you at the conference. You're one of our speakers, but they'll have to reach out to you. I'm about to go book my appointment. I've been experiencing all type of self-care techniques nowadays, and acupuncture is one of the ones that I want to try.
Okay, so I will give them the direct website for my calendar. It is to livingfully.as.me. To livingfully.as.me. So that's the direct link to my calendar. And it's a reminder as to why are we doing any of this? It's to living fully, and we can live as fully as possible no matter where we are in life. And I've even told my mom that, because there was a time she used to announce like, oh, she's dying, she's dying. It's been 10 years of that. And I told her, I said, we don't die till we die. Every day that you're alive, we're living fully. So, and she retained that. So she knows we're living fully. So that's the calendar. My website, and you can access the calendar from the website, is regulatemyhealth.com. Regulatemyhealth.com, because I'm all about nervous system regulation. And then the phone number is 954-390-0411. 954-390-0411. And they can call or text. So if you're watching, you can call or text that number. We can send you the link for the calendar if you want to book on your own, or we can book an appointment for you. When you go to regulatemyhealth.com, the landing page has my products. I have a line of natural health products, but as you navigate the site, you'll find my other services there as well.
Listen, she treats diabetes. She told me if there is something that I can do very well, is treating diabetes.
Diabetes, pain, all sorts of pain, chronic pain, and then the emotional condition. So the emotions, that's my realm, because the emotions are what makes us human, to be able to feel, to be able to connect. So there's nothing wrong with any emotion. They start causing issues when they're not processed and they're stored in the body. And it's that diabetes is how I ended up getting into trauma healing, because I was working with the diabetic patients and started seeing the link between trauma and diabetes. So that it all came full circle. Even how we met, I was at that event because I had that experience of the UTI. Otherwise, I would not have even thought of going to that event. And at the time that we met, I was in recovery. I was very introverted, and you came to me. You introduced yourself. So thank you.
I love it. It was divine connection for real. Because like I told you, I relied on that friend because I trust her. And I say, girl, I'm trying to go out and network and meet new people. Tell me where to go. She told me where I needed to go. I came. And I'm so grateful we got to meet. The difference that you're making, our emotions. I think people don't realize that our emotions determines who we are, because choices you make, if they're not associated with the right emotions, you could have this wonderful life or you could have a really messed up life. So she's telling you her expertise is to deal with emotion. Okay, take advantage of that. It is the lack of knowledge that causes the people to perish. And I know in this ALF caregiving industry, people can be very tight-lipped. And this is why I go out of my way and I find dope people like her. I bring them to the platform. All you have to do is now do your part. Make that phone call, book that appointment, go take care of you, because we need you to be out sound so you can open, you can care for, you can have a thriving assisted living, caregiving position, and you can help our seniors. Okay. Happy to serve you, grateful to serve you. Thank you for being here with us. Until next time, I will put Dr. V's information on the descriptions and reach out to her. Let her know what was your big aha moment. Until next time, please consider like, subscribe, and don't keep that information to yourself. Share the wealth with everybody else, okay? Love you. See you soon. This video is brought to you by the Florida Assisted Living and Caregivers Conference. It is an annual conference for all those who want to open an assisted living right here in Florida. We bring you all of the who's that will help you achieve your ALF. We have caregivers, we have people that already have their assisted living up and running, and they are here for resources. We have caregivers caring for mom and dad at home, but lack resources, so they show up for more resources. We have investors that are in the room looking for partnerships because they don't necessarily want to manage, but they are looking for someone to do the day-to-day while they can do the other investments. We also bring to you all of the sub-industries, those providers that help you get your ALF up and running, the providers that will come to your ALF to provide services to your seniors. We bring everyone in the room for the first time. This event normally sells out. Click the link in the description and I will see you in the room.